Happy Worm Day, everybody. We're going to continue working on our wet bins today. See what we can get done with that. This one here has been getting to be a real challenge once we get into it, but the top is drying some. So we will take off what we can off the top. I don't know, I think I'm going to have to get aggressive and do a light method here. And you know what? That's what we're going to do. We're going to get another bin. And the overs from our screening are going to go. I am actually getting more here. Anyway, the overs are going to go into that bin. And I got to do something to get this dried now. This is one of my bins too full. And this stuff's a lot more airy than what we're going to get to in the bottom of this bin. The bottom of this bin is really too wet. I'm trying to get my worms in. What did I do that for? That was dumb. Went to the wrong bucket. And I know I'm going to get some worms in this, in my overs. That's okay, because I think I'm going to leave the stuff in there. See, I was trying not to create another bin, and I'm not seeing a way around it. So I guess, away we go, we're going to have another bin. It's just much too wet. And I guess if I do that, then it'll give me room to put some dry paper in here and mix it up and help to control or try to get my moisture under control in this bit. So we got our winter storm. Today be March 4th, I believe. We didn't get near as much snow as they were talking about. Apparently north of us got more snow. Northern's middle of Saskatchewan. We seem to be missing it down here. We could sure use it. But it doesn't want to seem to come. Back down to 20 below today. It's supposed to be back up single digits in a day or two. Weather's all over the board. This is actually working pretty good today. I'm getting quite a bit out of this bin, and a lot more than I have in the past. This bin has been extremely wet, and anytime we've done anything with it, it's just been very much just spinning our wheels. Seems like today it's working better. So I gotta show you something just as it goes. And I know people are concerned about this. I do eggshell. And you can see there's still quite a bit of coarse eggshell in my castings. Is that anything to worry about? I don't believe it is. Yeah, this bean has changed a lot in the last couple days. So here's my thought on eggshell. And I spent a good portion of wasting my day yesterday being blown and everything else. And I just was sitting there grinding up some eggshells. And it takes a lot to get them really fine. And I'm starting to wonder why. I want you to take note of what the castings look like coming out of this bin with a lot of eggshell in it. And as we go through the bins, I want you to take note on what it looks like in the other stuff. And they all have the same treatment over time. I've added the same crushed eggshell in. And yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with the way this bin is working this time around. We're getting a really good amount out of it. And I get it, like we're wasted progress, right? We're actually gonna get down a fair ways into the mud before we get to the real mud this time. So it has the texture and the moisture content has changed a lot. And I have not put them on a fan onto them. I don't want to do that. I think that could be a bad thing. Okay, that is a massive amount of improvement for what I was getting out of it before, because before it was just a skiff of it was a skiff on the bottom of the bucket. So we're going to do this, and Now we're going to mix. And now we actually have some room to mix. These are my ENCs, guys, and look at, like, I have a lot of worms in here. And now I will have a start of a bin. Yeah, this is really changed. There's my banana. The worms are playing around on it. I'm just going to cover that back up. Alrighty. A good fluff. And it gives you an idea how many worms in there. There's a lot of little worms in here. So this was my brooder bin, right? So I expect to see a lot of little worms. And I do. There's a lot of little worms in here. So I've got worms of all sizes in here. And it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Now, I think we're getting really good progress on this. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to take that paper and do like that on that one. And this one I'm going to go like this. Because really, in this bin here, now, I will classify that as a new setup. And I'm just going to, you know, do a little more than that. That one's got worms on it. And they're still alive. Wow. Okay. So this is going to be a new setup. And now I'll cover this up with this. Okay, so that is going to join the club, as you can see. And it's going to move around to here. So we're changing things up, but we did. I got smart and brought my wire brush up. Ooh. How we doing here? Ooh, I moved you guys. Sorry about that. Probably just spent the whole time doing looking at nothing. So I got smart and brought my wire brush along because this is really full. So this guy, I'm going to sit back down and do some more drying. onto the red wigglers. And I hope we get the same amount of progress out of these as we did out of the last one. You know what? Hang on a minute. I am going to go get myself another bucket or two. Bucket anyway. Hang on. Alright, we're going to do the same thing on this bin, but I may throw it back in afterwards. We're getting some nice texture difference here. So I can see what it looks like. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, this feels a lot different. So we are gaining. And I'm happy with that. See some progress on this, on a couple of these bins. Because I was really struggling for a while to get any kind of progress. But we're really, it feels, I mean, it's still too wet for sifting. But we're getting some off, and we're going to, as we're doing it, we're aerating things. Small steps, I guess, right? Small steps. Like this moisture problem, I guess in these small bins, I knew it was coming, because I was keeping it way wetter than I usually keep my big bin. But I was using these guys as a brooder bin. But I was using these guys as a brooder bin, so I wanted it wetter, and it's a catch-22, right? So when it comes time to sift out the castings, I knew I was in for it. I knew I was in for it. Because the old saying goes, you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? I wanted it moist for them to hatch and breed and do the thing, and that worked out real well. You'll see when we turn this up, there's a lot of worms in here. I'm actually thinking maybe just turning the whole bin into that one, because now I've got all the dryer stuff at the bottom and the cardboard at the bottom. I could add more cardboard in there, but am I going to? I guess I have to be careful what I do, because I can cause myself more problems with putting more paper in there, because then nothing will sit. Again, this is the part here where I'm really on a sharp learning curve, because everything I've done up till now is completely different. Starting to see a lot more weight. I'm getting down to the wet part because it's really sticking to my fingertips. We're going to clean the other end of the bin out. Take as much as we can out. We're getting a fair amount out. It's actually it's working better this time. We have achieved some drying. See? I'm going to do that. Just move the stuff out on the ends so that we can kind of tell what's going on, how much we're getting out of this, because we are getting some out. I'm okay with it. And I'm not worried about worms going into my castings. Right now I don't care. I really just want to get my systems ready for spring. And if I have worms in my castings, they're going to be there till I go to use the castings, I guess, or whatever. Maybe do a final sift. There's a stick. Grape stick. They take forever to break down. I bet you will see that grape stick this summer. See, they take forever. But we are quite literally getting a good amount out of this stuff now. I'd say we're getting down to the point where it's too wet again. But you know, I actually like doing this because it gives me room to stir it up. And I'm serious, I think, well, I don't know, there's a whack of little worms in here. Oh, these guys are really onto the banana. Yep, they're really onto the banana. Got worm balls around my banana. Okay, so this is a red wiggler bin. This is my guys, cocoons, and babies. There could be anything in this bin, but it's mostly red wigglers. From what I'm seeing, I'm not seeing a huge population of blues anymore. I'm not saying they're not there. Does it really matter? Not a bunch. Okay, so that's mixed up. We got baby worms everywhere on the plastic. The next bin we're doing is a red wiggler bin too, so it just doesn't matter. Well, actually it kind of does, because that's a brooder bin. This was a siftings bin. So I don't know if you can pick this up. Baby worm, baby worm, baby worm, baby worm. Cluster of worms. Baby worm. Baby worm. Baby worm. Baby worm. Some of them are very small. There's a lot of worms in this bin. I'm just going to grab a handful of paper. These guys, cocoons and babies, so we'll put. So all I do is I just grab some paper or bedding, whatever, and I just swish it around. And what happens is the paper takes, it gets them. It kind of gets the worms off of the plastic and into a medium without damaging a bunch of them. Okay. So this bin here is the guys, cocoons and babies from a different time of sifting. But when you do it with bedding or medium or something like that, it's a lot more gentle on your worms, right? Like, I'm not saying you're not going to hurt some of them. But you don't have to try to. Okay. So see, you just don't, they're gone. They're off there. It's all good. Put that down there because there's worms on there. Right, so this bin's stirred up, and it really has changed quite a bit. That ENC bin that we started with has changed the most. This one's my original brooder bin. I'm going to do the same thing. Yeah. Feels quite a bit better. And we're going to just to get a rough idea of what we're gaining. Yeah, pulling out quite a bit. Pulling out quite a bit. So when it comes time to use my castings, I will re-sift them, take the baby worms out that come out with the screens, hopefully grab some cocoons that come out with the screens, and serve in with that, and it'll be like a mixed bin of ENCs and night crawlers and probably some blues. And that won't matter to me because my projects outside, it don't matter if they're mixed worms. In fact, probably could be beneficial that there be mixed worms rather than just all one kind, because then you have the diversity of species within the windrow, which maybe the blues will be more on top and then the red wigglers more apt to be a little bit deeper, or maybe vice versa. And then you have the European night crawlers that maybe like to go deep, so maybe they're going deeper. The diversity won't hurt. Diversity in nature is how nature works. I'm coming down to where my banana is, and I can see the worms are really, they're on her now. So I'm just gonna go to the other end. So that's my red wiggler size. They're not huge, but doesn't matter. There's lots of them. They're doing their thing. I'm actually thinking we're gaining quite a bit out of this bin today, and that's I'm happy with that. So I just took 2 days off between checking them this time, like not checking them, but trying to get worm castings out and trying to deal with this moisture. Yeah, seems to have, you can really see the difference. Like we're getting a good amount out. I'm happy with that. So I've been researching more on this worm tea, and last year I diluted my worm tea 10 to 1. And I used it in a drench situation. I think my experiments out on the farm are going to be some 10 to 1 and some 5 to 1. And at that, I'm going to put it on basically at the same rate per acre of total product. So the 5 to 1, I'll put it on at 25 gallons an acre, and the 10 to 1, I'll put it on at 25 gallons an acre. So I don't have quite as much coverage as I thought I did if I do that. But Rome wasn't built in a day. This is a learning thing. I figure if I do 300 acres right this year as a good example, and record what we're doing and show people what we're doing, and get my system bigger to grow bigger for next year, I'll be happy with it. Because believe it or not, until you're set up to do everything, it takes work. All right. So I want to remind you to look. Here's our previous castings from the ENCs in the first bin. There's a lot more egg shell in there than there is in there. All bins were treated fairly equal. There wasn't an intentional difference in any of these bins. I mean, there could have been a non-intentional thing about the eggshell and whatnot. I won't go and say that there was, because okay, I'm not sure you guys can get this. That's around my banana, and they're just packed around it. So as a bait zone or a food zone, if I wanted to catch worms, that would work without a problem. I'm not going to stir the banana up. There's no use. Still a lot of worms at this end too. But there's definitely a concentration down there on that banana. So if you want to use something for a bait in your worm traps, by all means, use banana, because they really go to it. Okay, I said I was going to put this back into this bin, and I just want you to see I've got paper, and I've got a good, like my stuff's drier down here. This stuff's all wet and I'm trying to deal with it. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to put this bin into that one. I'm going to transfer my banana bin, and you should get a pretty good view out of this because there's going to be a lot of worms around that banana and that end, and it's going to be cool to watch. And I don't usually intend to mix up my worms that and stir them up that bad, but my objective here right now is to get my castings in a better condition. Okay, so you can maybe see some how many worms are at this end of the bin. Okay, I didn't stir up around the banana, right? Yeah, we're gonna have to. Well, actually, I'm gonna use this bin. There's my banana zone. Worm ball. Like a really big worm ball. We're gonna bury that banana again. It smells sweet in this bin from that banana. Like you can smell the sugars. And we'll reset the banana. There it is. And we're going to put it down here. Cover it up. How many worms I got there, guys? Well over 250, because my ball that I started with when I bought worms was 250 and it wasn't that big. Probably 500 worms in that, what I had in my hand, maybe more. Pretty neat, because this all came from my original brooder bin. Grab some paper. I'm just going to put this like this. And you can see with paper you can get a nice, you put a little pressure on, whereas if you're just doing it with your hands, you just smear the worms and kill them. Whereas the paper gives the space for the worms to get into the paper, and then you can take the paper and put it in the bin. Put it in the same bin. Have a look while you're doing it. Oh, see, I just removed a worm. You're gonna have casualties. If you cry on the death of one worm, you better fill up with tears before you start working your worms, because you are going to have casualties. And I don't try to make them happen, but they do happen. Alright. We'll just cover these guys up again. Put them back to work. using your shirt to use for my hand cleaner because it has to be washed.
Okay.
Now we'll go back to the guys. And we've really gained a lot out of the
I
guys
can't believe you can pick them up.
over the last, what we've been doing. So things, the guys have been really doing good on the condition of the castings and getting things done. So I like to check my paper for worms, or my plastic I should say, for worms. I had worms in my plastic last time. And here's one. They like to get tied up into that. And there's usually cocoons sucked to the moisture of the on the plastic too. So when you're thinking about taking plastic out of your bin, you will have a transfer of worms. And if you don't want to mix stuff up, you better pay attention to what you're transferring your plastic to. Because they'll go with it, and then you'll have a mix. So you gotta physically try to keep things separate. Taper's pretty much toast. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing. Well, I am not going to, shall we say, put worms. Here's a worm. Saved his life. He's back with his friends. Here's a worm. There's a worm. Go back and check your stuff after you've done it. Because the little buggers, they find a way. Like it doesn't take much for them to hide behind, and all of a sudden they're crawling out across the bucket looking for a place to be. Okay, let's commence to sifting out of here because this is a fun bin. This bin here has been working out really well. The castings feel really good, and our overs are going to come back into this bin. So I want to give you an idea. The last couple times we've sifted these four bins, or three previous bins, we didn't get anywhere near this much. So we're going to have a fair amount by the time we're done with the guys. Move this stuff this way. So I got a place to send my overs back to. This stuff has really dried out nicely at this end because this was the end that was open. So we'll sift it. Oh, we're really getting a good yield out of this stuff because I mean, there's just not that much. Like we're putting in to the screen, we're putting quite a bit of stuff in there. See? By the time she comes out, we're getting a good yield out of it. Probably up 30, 40, maybe 50% now of the yield of what we put in. chunk out. That just hinders your sifting. Working good. We're going to have a real nice batch out of this bin. I think we're almost to the point sometime in the not too distant future where we could probably, if we wanted to, do a light extraction method and do a weighing of the worms after a year. Because I started with 1/4 pound. I took out multiple times worms to start other bins. It would be neat to get a rough idea how many pounds of worms are in this bin to just see how things have progressed. And I know that's not necessary in my worm farm operation. It just would be settling my curiosity. So, not sure if I'm going to do it, but I think it would be cool. But really happy with the amount of castings we're getting off this bin, because this bin is in a way different condition than the previous 3 bins. We got quite a bit out of that. Weight wise, more than 50%, because the castings is what weighs up, and the worms. It's not the paper that weighs up. There's a lot of, we've gotten a lot of so if I wasn't gonna keep taking them down, keep taking the castings out, we're almost to the point now where we could restart my wedge, but I'm not going to do that yet, because I really do think I'm going to continue taking down, and I'd like to do a rough weigh up of how many pounds of worms are in this bin. For my curiosity, yeah, it's a good discussion point. I like being able to say, yeah, we did this or we did that. There's little worms. Little worms, they're just hairs. Come across with screens. So I don't intentionally put plastic through my shredder. If I see it before I shred, I take it and I rip it off. And I mean, my shredder stuff is just stuff that goes through my kitchen right now. As for right now, I'm getting more than enough to deal with what I'm doing. I would say the average household that receives any amount of Amazon cartons or anything like that, and you can recycle this stuff, yes. Hunter and I have both touched on this. Our recycling system here where we're at isn't as good as some. For one, we have to haul stuff so far. So the transportation, if you can do something about transporting it in this day and age, that's probably got to be worth something. Okay, now we're getting wetter. But we've also taken a lot out. These guys have gotten coarser, like the eggshells in the same condition. But with the amount of worms and the different biota in this bin, it seems like the castings are much clearer when they come through this system. It's a bigger system. It has, I think there's more time and more opportunity for the stuff to go through the wedge and find its way through. For sure there's still some eggshell coming through the screen right now. Yeah. One or two more and we're done. Just give it all a stir up afterwards and let it dry some more, and it's been really doing well. One more. We can make one more. What are we going to call that? So we've taken, it wouldn't be 50%. Probably another 20%, 20-25% out we got out of this bin of what we put through. Here's my banana, or one of my bananas. Here's my feed zone. Let's just go with that. And I just give this kind of a fluffing up with my finger, but I'm not going to dig it up. But one of the reasons this would make sense that it's wetter at this end is this was my feed zone. All the moisture from the bananas and stuff that we fed the other day. There's a whack of worms in here. Whack of worms in here. This bin is more than half empty now. When I started pulling stuff, it was just about full. When we'd fluff it up, it was full. This has been a real success on this part. So we're just gonna put stuff back. You don't have to get too worried about some of this stuff, because look at that bag, just keeps disappearing more and more every time. If you've been watching my videos, you know that they're using this paper up, and that's completely fine. So we're going to leave that open. We're going to put our plastics back over here at this end. Just a bunch of little worms on this top plastic. And that's it for that part of it. I'm going to show you how we're doing on the worm casting part. Okay, so look at the difference in color here. Yes, there's still some eggshell comes through the screen, but let's just go back over here and dig down a little bit. A lot more eggshell coming through the screen on them ones. So to put it in perspective, doesn't matter. The eggshell will go through, eventually get out into the garden and get mixed out. It'll get mixed out. So these castings here are real wet, and my worm trap is in this bin. Doesn't matter if I'm getting worms in here or not. Sure, there's probably some. I'm going to just mix all this together and give it a stir up, because this stuff's been out of the worm bin longer, and we're just gonna mix it all up before we put it back in, just so that it doesn't go anaerobic. And it takes a little bit more than just a day or two, but I want to dry it down just a little bit because it's very wet. And yeah, put her back in. So when you're moving wet castings and stuff around, don't throw it in, like, because that will pack it. Just go in and fluff it. This is gorgeous stuff. Okay, now we're going to put the worm trap in. And we're just going to feed around it. And then we're just going to continue. Because you got to maintain your castings and you got to try to get them in shape. So I don't want to dry them right out, but they're quite wet. So you have to watch for anaerobic conditions. But that's pretty high grade stuff. So we were talking last time, or I was talking one time, not we and not last about how much I can achieve with a bucket this size of castings. So this bucket will make 2 totes full of stuff. 2 totes full of worm tea. A tote is 200 or 250 gallons. I believe actually it's 250 gallons. So that puts me in an area where I can cover, if I go 5 to 1, one tote basically is 1 sprayer full. No, that's not right. Yes, it is right. So at 1,000 gallons in my sprayer, and I mix that down. Might not be exact science, but 1 tote is 1 sprayer full. Mix is giving me heck because Mom went to a doctor appointment and she's here alone with me and she doesn't like it in my ears. So she gives me heck. Okay. So we've got in this stuff here right now, we've got the possibility of night crawlers, blue worms, and red wigglers in this little mix up stuff to get all these little, and there was a pile of baby worms on the bottom of this pail, of this bucket. So I've got 1 bin that I know is going to end up out into the windrow. Oops, I just about knocked you over. I've got 1 bin that I know is going to end up out into the windrow. And that is the fat guys. And the fat guys have been getting some red wigglers built up into it too. The moisture in here. I gave them some water last time. Moisture really picked up. There's one of the fat guys right there. Okay, so I'm gonna use this bin for a place to put the wipeout worms. Wipeout. Wipeout. The wipeout worms of these, of the castings, when I do this. That way it doesn't matter what, because they're going outside. And I know they're going outside. And that's just the way life's going to be. So, as you can see, we've achieved some pretty good progress here today. That was a good bunch of castings. Take these guys over here. My breeder bin. Okay, so I don't have, I guess I got 1 more bin, but that's okay. All right, let's show you guys Okay, there's. So in this full, I should get 2 totes. At 5 to 1. At 10 to 1, I'd get 4. At 25 gallon acre on my sprayer settings and my application rate, a tote should cover 40 acres. 40 acres. So when I get that blue bucket and it's full, has enough castings to make worm tea to cover 80 acres. That's pretty good when you think about it. So if I go 10 to 1, and I'm going to do both. Well, I've decided I'm going to try some of each. I'm going to do both. I'm going to do some at 5 to 1, and I'm going to do some at 10 to 1, and see if we can record the differences, if there is going to be any difference. And then we'll know if it's worth putting on our worm castings at 5 to 1 at the double rate, or 10 to 1 at the single rate, and getting more coverage. Because more coverage means something too. Like if you can stretch it out and do it more often, and stuff like that. Like I know I'm going to see results at 10 to 1. I just don't know if we're going to see economically viable results at 10 to 1 the first time. So that's the tricky part there. Like if we're going to learn. So I'm going to do some at 5 to 1, some at 10 to 1. Record our results as best we can for all of you to see, and anyone else that wants to learn about the more natural way of farming and fertilizing. And yeah, spring's coming, and I'm looking forward to trying some of this stuff. So like, subscribe, share, comment, and it's just another update on doing worm castings, and we actually gained something this time. Have a great day.